Stop. Put down the sword. For years, you have been fighting a war against yourself. You have read the spiritual books. You have listened to the gurus. You have watched the videos on enlightenment. And they all told you the same thing. The ego is the enemy. Kill your ego. Transcend the self. Be selfless. They told you that to be spiritual, you must destroy your identity. You must have no desires, no anger, no boundaries, and no face. They told you that if you still feel pride or ambition or the urge to fight back, you are low vibration. So you tried to kill it. You suppressed your anger. You silenced your voice. You gave away your power. You became a nice person. You became a doormat for the world to walk on. And look at where it got you. Are you enlightened, or are you just repressed? Are you peaceful, or are you secretly boiling with rage that you are not allowed to express? I am here to tell you the truth that the love and light community refuses to acknowledge. Killing the ego is a trap set by the Matrix. Think about it. Who benefits from a population of people who have no identity, no boundaries, and no fight? The system benefits. The Matrix does not want warriors, it wants sheep. It wants you selfless so it can use you. It wants you passive so it can control you. If you kill your ego, you do not become God, you become a victim. You cannot navigate this 3D reality without an ego, just as an astronaut cannot walk on the moon without a spacesuit. The ego is not the enemy. The ego is the interface. The problem is not that you have an ego. The problem is that your ego is untrained. It is running the show instead of serving the master. You don't shoot your bodyguard because he is rude. You retrain him. In this transmission, we are going to stop the civil war inside your psyche. We are going to dive into the psychology of Carl Jung and the shadow. We are going to learn why your dark side holds the keys to your power and how to turn your ego from a toxic dictator into a loyal soldier. You are not here to disappear. You are here to integrate. I need to know if you are ready to reclaim your power. Have you been feeling guilty for having ambition? Have you been suppressing your anger to be spiritual? If you are done being a sheep, declare your sovereignty. Comment below, I integrate my power. Let's end the war. Chapter 1. The Avatar. What the ego really is. First, we must define our terms. What exactly is the ego? In the spiritual community, ego is often confused with arrogance or narcissism. But clinically, psychologically, that is not what ego is. The ego is simply the I. It is the construct that separates you from me. It is the operating system that allows your infinite consciousness to interact with a finite world. Imagine you are playing a video game. You are the player sitting on the couch, the soul. But on the screen, there is a character, the ego. The character has a name, it has a costume, it has skills, it has a health bar. Can you play the game without the character? No. If you delete the character, the screen goes blank. The game is over. The goal of the game is not to destroy the character. The goal is to master the character so that the player can experience the game fully. You chose this character. You chose this body, this name, this personality, this timeline. Why would you try to destroy the very vehicle you chose to inhabit? The Matrix has tricked you into hating your avatar. It tells you that your desires for success, for money, for respect are evil. But desire is the engine of creation. Without desire, the universe stands still. It tells you that your anger is bad, but anger is the fuel of justice. Without anger, you would never set a boundary. You would never protect your children. You would never stand up against tyranny. The ego is your interface. It is the spacesuit designed to withstand the pressure of the third dimension. Without it, you would dissolve. You would be a cloud of energy, beautiful, yes, but incapable of doing anything in the physical world. You cannot build a house as a cloud. You cannot hug your partner as a cloud. You cannot change the world as a cloud. You need the density of the ego to make an impact. So, stop apologizing for existing. Stop apologizing for taking up space. The healthy ego says, I am here. I matter. I have a purpose. That is not arrogance. That is structural integrity. Chapter 2. The Basement. How the Shadow is Born. If the ego is necessary, why does it cause so much suffering? Why do we have people who are narcissistic, cruel, and selfish? This brings us to the most critical concept of Carl Jung, the shadow. When you were a child, you were whole, you were loud, you were messy, you were angry, you were joyful. But then, you began to receive feedback from the Matrix, parents, teachers, society. Don't be so loud. Don't be so angry. Don't be so selfish. Boys don't cry. Girls shouldn't fight. To survive, to be loved, and to fit in, you had to slice off parts of yourself. You took your anger, your sexuality, your ambition, your wildness, and you shoved them into a dark bag. You threw that bag into the basement of your subconscious mind and locked the door. Carl Jung called this basement the shadow. The shadow consists of everything you are but refuse to acknowledge. The persona you show to the world is the nice guy or the good girl. This is the fake ego. But down in the basement, the parts you rejected did not die, they grew. And because they have been locked in the dark, starving and ignored, they became twisted. They became demons. Your healthy aggression, suppressed for 20 years, turned into passive-aggressive bitterness or sudden explosive rage. Your healthy desire for attention, suppressed for 20 years, turned into manipulative victimhood. Your healthy sexuality, suppressed for 20 years, turned into perversion or shame. The toxic ego that spiritual people hate is actually the inflated shadow. It is the monster in the basement, banging on the floorboards, demanding to be heard. When you try to kill your ego even more, you are just adding more locks to the basement door. You are suppressing the shadow even further. And the harder you press a beach ball underwater, the more violently it will fly up and hit you in the face. This is why you see spiritual gurus who preach love and light eventually get caught in massive scandals of abuse, fraud, or manipulation. They tried to be so light that they cast a massive shadow, and the shadow always wins. You cannot destroy the darkness, you can only illuminate it. You are not a being of only light. You are a being of light and dark. The tree cannot reach heaven if its roots do not go down to hell. Chapter 3. The Nice Person Syndrome. Weakness is not virtue. Let's address the biggest symptom of the ego death trap: the nice person. Society tells you that being nice is a virtue. The Matrix awards you for being compliant, agreeable, and harmless. But there is a massive difference between being good and being nice. A nice person is harmless. They have no capacity for violence or destruction. They are peaceful because they have no other choice. A good person has the capacity for great destruction. They have sharp teeth. They have a sword, but they choose to keep it sheathed. That is virtue. Virtue requires capacity. If you are incapable of biting, you are not virtuous. You are toothless. Jordan Peterson, a modern interpreter of Jung, said it best: "A harmless man is not a good man. A harmless man is not a man. A good man is a very dangerous man who has that under voluntary control." When you killed your ego, you pulled out your own teeth. You thought you were becoming spiritual, but you were actually becoming prey. This is why nice guys finish last. This is why people pleasers are always exhausted and resentful, because unconsciously they despise their own weakness. They say yes when they want to say no. They smile when they want to scream. This creates a dissonance in the frequency field. It is a lie. The universe does not respond to weakness. The universe responds to authenticity. And you cannot be authentic if you are hiding half of who you are. The shadow work is the process of retrieving your teeth. It is going down into the basement, unlocking the door, and finding the monster you created. It is looking that monster in the eye and saying, "I am sorry I locked you away. I need you back, but from now on, you work for me." We need your anger, but we will retrain it to become passion. We need your arrogance, but we will retrain it to become confidence. We need your selfishness, but we will retrain it to become self-love. Nothing is thrown away. Everything is recycled, alchemized. Be honest with yourself. Are you a nice person? Do you have trouble saying no? Do you let people walk over your boundaries because you are afraid of conflict? That is not spirituality. That is fear disguised as virtue. Admit it so you can change it. Comment below. No more mask. Chapter 4. The Integration. Meeting the Monster. So how do we begin the shadow work? How do we stop killing the ego and start training it? It starts with observation of triggers. The Matrix uses your shadow against you through triggers. Whenever you feel an intense, irrational, emotional reaction to someone, that is your shadow speaking. Carl Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." If you look at an arrogant billionaire and you feel intense hatred and judgment, look closer. Why do you hate him? Is it because he is evil? Or is it because he is expressing the uninhibited power and freedom that you locked in your basement? Your shadow is jealous. Your shadow wants that power. But your nice ego says power is bad, so you project evil onto him to feel morally superior. If you look at a lazy person and feel rage, it is because you have suppressed your own desire to rest. You have forced yourself to be a worker bee, and you hate seeing someone else enjoy the leisure you deny yourself. Projection is the mechanism of the shadow. The world is a mirror. What you hate in others is what you deny in yourself. What you admire in others is what you desire in yourself. To integrate the ego, you must stop judging the mirror. The next time you get triggered, do not blame the other person. Stop. Turn the camera around. Ask yourself, what part of me is resonating with this? Why does this threaten me? When you own your shadow, the matrix can no longer trigger you. You become unoffendable. Because if someone calls you selfish and you have already integrated your selfishness, you simply say, yes, sometimes I am. I prioritize my energy. It has no sting. You have taken the weapon out of their hands. This is true invincibility. Not having no ego, but having an ego that is so complete, so integrated, and so transparent that it has no weak points for the matrix to strike. Chapter 5. The Four Pillars, Restructuring the Kingdom. We have established that you cannot kill the ego. If you kill the king, the kingdom falls into chaos. So, if we are not killing it, what are we doing? We are maturing it. Most people are walking around with an immature ego. This is the ego of a child. It wants what it wants when it wants it. It screams when it is hurt. It breaks things when it is angry. The goal of spiritual awakening is to upgrade the immature ego into a mature ego. Psychologists Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette mapped this out perfectly. A healthy, integrated ego stands on four pillars. To hack the matrix, you must install these four archetypes into your avatar. 1. The king, the sovereign. The immature ego plays the tyrant, controlling others, or the weakling, letting others control him. The mature king provides order, protection, and blessing. The king does not need to shout to be heard. His presence is enough. He is centered. He is decisive. He takes responsibility for his realm, his life, his family, his business. Ask yourself, are you the king of your life, or are you waiting for someone else to save you? 2. The warrior, the protector. The spiritual community hates the warrior. They think he is violent. But without the warrior, you have no boundaries. The immature ego plays the sadist, cruelty, or the masochist, cowardice. The mature warrior is not violent. He is dangerous, but disciplined. He is the capacity to say no. He is the energy that gets you out of bed at 5 a.m. He is the energy that pushes through the pain at the gym. He is the energy that cuts toxic people out of your life. If your warrior is offline, you are a doormat. 3. The magician, the knower. This is your intellect and intuition. The immature ego plays the manipulator, using knowledge to trick, or the innocent, refusing to learn. The mature magician uses knowledge to transform reality. He understands how the matrix works. He is the alchemist. He turns lead into gold, trauma into wisdom. 4. The lover, the connector. This is your passion and empathy. The immature ego plays the addict, lost in pleasure, or the impotent, unable to feel. The mature lover appreciates beauty. He connects deeply with nature, art, and other souls. He keeps the warrior from becoming cold. He keeps the king from becoming rigid. The integration. You need all four. If you have the warrior but no lover, you are a brute. If you have the lover but no warrior, you are a victim. If you have the king but no magician, you are a fool. Stop trying to be selfless. Instead, ask yourself which pillar is weak. Is your warrior asleep? Wake him up. Is your king absent? Put him on the throne. Build a strong ego structure so that your soul has a fortress to live in. Chapter 6. The Golden Shadow. Your hidden genius. Now we must discuss the most tragic part of the shadow. When you think of the shadow, you think of dark things: anger, lust, greed, jealousy. But Carl Jung discovered something surprising. The shadow is not just a trash can for your sins. It is also a treasure chest for your gold. This is called the Golden Shadow. Just as you suppressed your bad traits to fit in, you also suppressed your great traits. Why? Because the matrix creates tall poppy syndrome. When you were a child, maybe you were too smart and the other kids bullied you, so you dumbed yourself down to fit in. You put your intelligence in the shadow. Maybe you were too beautiful, were too talented, and your siblings got jealous, so you made yourself small and invisible. You put your radiance in the shadow. Maybe you were a natural leader, but you were told, "Don't be bossy," so you became a follower. You put your leadership in the shadow. Most of you are not afraid of your darkness. You are afraid of your light. You are afraid that if you truly shine, if you truly succeed, if you truly embrace your power, you will be rejected. You will be alone. So you play small. You sabotage your own success. You manifest just enough to survive, but never enough to thrive. This is false humility. It is fear masked as modesty. Marianne Williamson wrote, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure." To integrate the ego, you must go back into the basement and retrieve your gold. Look at the people you admire. Who is your hero? Is it Elon Musk? Is it Oprah? Is it a rock star? Is it a fearless revolutionary? The traits you admire in them are the traits you possess but have denied. You cannot resonate with something you do not contain. If you admire their courage, it is because your inner courage is banging on the door of the basement, screaming, "Let me out!" Stop projecting your greatness onto celebrities. Stop worshiping idols. Take the projection back. Eat the shadow. Consume the hero. Realize that you are the one you have been waiting for. So, what is your golden shadow? What talent or dream did you bury because you were afraid of shining too bright? Are you a suppressed artist? A suppressed leader? A suppressed millionaire? Claim it back right now. Comment below, "I claim my gold." Chapter 7. The Conversation. How to do shadow work. Theory is useless without practice. How do you actually do shadow work? Do you need a therapist? Do you need psychedelics? No. You need a pen and paper, and you need the courage to be honest. Here is the Dialogue with the Demon protocol. Step 1. Identify the trigger. Think of a recent situation where you felt an intense negative emotion, anger, jealousy, shame, that was disproportionate to the event. Maybe someone cut you off in traffic and you wanted to kill them. Maybe a friend succeeded and you felt a stab of envy. Capture that feeling. Give it a name. Let's call it the rage or the envy. Step 2. Personify the shadow. Imagine that feeling is a person or a creature living inside you. What does it look like? Is it a screaming child? Is it a cold demon? Is it a wounded animal? Do not judge it, just see it. Step 3. The interview. Open your journal. You are going to have a conversation with this entity. Write a question with your dominant hand, your conscious mind. Then switch the pen to your non-dominant hand, your subconscious mind. This sounds crazy, but it works. Using the non-dominant hand bypasses the logical filters of the brain and accesses the primal brain. Or simply close your eyes and let the answer bubble up without filtering. Ask these questions. Who are you? When were you born? When did I first lock you away? What are you trying to protect me from? What do you need from me to feel safe? You will be shocked by the answers. The rage might tell you, I am protecting you because you let people walk all over you. I am your boundaries. The envy might tell you, I am showing you what you are capable of. I am your ambition starving to death. Step 4. The deal. Once you understand the shadow's positive intent, and it is always a positive intent for your survival, make a deal. Tell the shadow, I hear you. Thank you for protecting me. You don't need to scream anymore. I will take charge now. I will set boundaries. I will pursue my dreams. Work with me, not against me. This is how you turn lead into gold. You turn the internal enemy into an internal ally. The energy that was used to suppress the shadow is now liberated. You will feel a sudden rush of energy, clarity, and lightness. That is the ego death people talk about. It is not death, it is rebirth. Chapter 8. Spiritual Bypassing, the Final Trap. A final warning before you exit this transmission. Beware of spiritual bypassing. This is when you use spirituality as a drug to avoid feeling your pain. You feel sad? Oh, I'll just meditate it away. You feel angry? I'll just chant a mantra. You have trauma? I'll just focus on the present moment. This is avoiding the work. You cannot heal what you do not feel. You cannot ascend if you are weighed down by unprocessed baggage. Meditation is great, but meditation without shadow work is just sedation. It is spiritual anesthesia. Do not use the void or the heart field from last videos to run away from your ego. Use them to hold the space for the ego to heal. True spirituality is messy. It involves tears. It involves screaming. It involves facing the ugly parts of yourself in the mirror and loving them anyway. That is unconditional love. Loving the light is easy. Everyone can do that. Loving the dark, that is the mark of a master. The law of reverse effort. You now understand the paradox. To become selfless, you must first have a strong self. To ascend to the light, you must first descend into the dark. To kill the false ego, you must build the true ego. When you integrate your shadow, something magical happens. You stop trying so hard. You stop wearing a mask, so you save massive amounts of energy. You stop fighting yourself, so you have no internal resistance. You enter a state of flow. The ancient Taoists called this wu-wei, action without action, effortless effort. It is the state where you do not force the river, you become the river. Most of you are exhausted because you are swimming upstream. You are trying to force your manifestations. You are trying to force your awakening. But in the next transmission, we will learn why trying is actually the biggest block to having. We will decode the neuroscience of the flow state. We will learn why lazy people sometimes get rich and why hard workers sometimes stay poor. We are going to flip the script on hard work. Next video, the law of reverse effort. Put down the sword, unlock the basement, hug the monster, and get ready to flow. You have stopped running from yourself. The monster in the basement is now the warrior at the gate. Claim your full power, both light and dark. Type, "I own my shadow." Integrate.